It is lunch on day 4, and we're already unveiling at the start of ESPN Cricket for Matchday, powered by Realme X7 5G and X7 Pro 5G. On day 4, it's a very warm welcome for the first time in this series to Sanjay Manjrekar, version 2.0. This is the sort of look that overseas players tend to get when they come to India for a long series. But I could get used to this look. Welcome, Sanjay.
Thank you very much. And it's a very hard-earned look, Ronak. At my age, it's not easy to lose, all the fat that tends to get accumulated, especially in the lockdown. So there you are. This is what you've got now.
Yeah, at my age also, Sanjay, don't worry. Okay, let's discuss this morning session. And for a team
Yeah.
which is 240 behind and perhaps least likely to get a result in their favor in terms of a win, that still is a session that India may not mind, Sanjay.
Absolutely. And if you saw Virat Kohli's reaction, when they got that wicket just before lunch,
Yes.
that tells you how this Indian team thinks, especially with Virat Kohli at the helm. Tactically, people have an issue with his captaincy, but this is where Virat Kohli is a bit like Vivian Richards, where they're always hopeful. And, if the captain believes that they can still, make a match out of this one from the current situation, who knows, So it's going to be England under pressure for a while, but the test is going to be for the Indian spinners once the ball gets hold.
Yeah, just what we saw, the evidence of 2 overs and that wicket of Rory Burns. It should make for an exciting next session. Let's get your thoughts first on the decision of England to bat again. They had the option of putting India back in. Good call, sound call with the lead, with the deficit of 241.
It's a very modern call. You see,
Hmm.
these days there are not too many teams enforce the follow on. There is so much talk about conservation of energy and not overburdening bowlers and players, and especially England, are masters of that. You saw how Ben Stokes was used, Jimmy Anderson as well. So when they're playing 4 bowlers and a Ben Stokes, the attack looks a little limited because not they don't burden their fast bowlers too much. So from that standpoint, not at all surprised that they haven't enforced the follow on, and it's the thing to do these days where the bowlers get a bit of rest. If India would have collapsed, then the follow on would surely have come.
All right. And now let's discuss the highlights for India in that session, starting with Washington Sundar, a second test half century in as many test matches. And again, a rearguard action that his team would find most valuable. 85 not out of 138. Batted like a proper batsman. We're seeing some talent here in terms of just a test batsman from Washington Sundar, Sanjay.
Exactly what I tweeted, because when you see him bat like this, and then imagine that he can bowl like that as well. So you're looking at a guy who's really talented, and the attacking shots that he has are very natural. He just hits the ball easily out of the ground. We've seen that in the IPL as well. And, his attacking play is not to sort of upset the bowlers, or it's not a counter measure because he's uncomfortable in defense, because he looks very good in defense as well. So when you look at this young man, and this guy has really come from the T20, route into Test cricket. It's a talent that you've got to just marvel at. He's comfortable in defense against spin. He seems to be very okay against fast bowlers as well. Plus, has a big game which he can play. In fact, all the big shots that he attempted, he didn't miss a single one. So you're looking at a serious talent there.
We saw extremely good pull shot of Pat Cummins in Australia. We're seeing an on drive of Jofra Archer in India, and trying to think, this is such a good batsman, but how do you handle him? Because he's at best a stopgap replacement till Ravindra Jadeja is fully fit and takes that sort of role. Can there be a way that Washington Sundar, for this sort of talent, can cement his place in the Test side, if not in other formats?
Bowling is crucial for Washington Sundar. He was slightly disappointing in the first innings. I thought he was pretty impressive in Australia. So in the second innings, there's something that I've noted watching the match in the last 3 days. That the pitch is very slow. Everyone's seen that it's turning, but it's turning very slowly. So you need a bowler who's bowling at an average speed of about late 80s and early 90s, like a Monte Panessa, who came a few years back and devastated India. In this current, two teams that we're watching, all the spinners are somewhat in the early 80s with the average speed. The only guy who's in the late 80s with the speed that you need on a slow turner like this is Washington Sundar. So if he can be used a little properly, I thought he bowled a wrong line in the first inning. So if he's given that confidence that he's a bowler who's more suited to exploit these kind of conditions than an Ashwin or a Shahban Nadeem, then you might just get a little more out of Washington Sundar. We need to get more out of him as a bowler for him to be sort of almost an automatic choice, if not, the third choice spinner.
There are some batsmen or lower order batsmen that tend to contribute when they bat in the lower order. Does Washington Sundar strike you as the kind of player that could deliver with bat even if he bats higher?
I don't want to think like that because at the moment, with the kind of record that he's had, the background that he's got, he's got to be looked at as somebody who can do both. And then one skill has to get exception. I don't want to even think of him as a pure batsman at this stage and imagine what if he bats a number 5 or 6. It's a little unfair to a lot of batsmen who are lined up there to play as proper batsmen because these are Indian conditions, Indian pitches, and a lot of those guys would actually make a mark as number 5 or 6 pure batsmen. So Washington Sundar, for the moment, for me, is an extremely talented cricketer, but needs to deliver on the bowling front first and see then how his career evolves.
All right, fair enough. Washington Sundar relatively at ease, not only against the pace of Archer and Anderson, but even the spinners who've picked up a bulk of the wickets. 81 runs or 80 runs in 21.4 overs for India this morning. And did England help a little bit in letting them ease into the day? What do you make of England in the first hour of play today?
First 30 minutes waiting for the second new ball was, I couldn't understand the logic there. There again, you see how, seam bowlers tend to get protected these days, especially by England, because the second new ball was due and they had about 4 or 6 overs to bowl this morning. But the spinners were getting hammered, both the Bess and Leach. And that is the time maybe Ben Stokes could have bowled a couple of overs with the old ball. And he's a guy who will make something happen. Bowl him at any stage, but they are trying to conserve Ben Stokes to the extent that Rishabh Pant may not have faced a single ball from Ben Stokes in his score of 91. So I thought a fast bowler should have been bowled. And this thing we saw in Australia as well, where the fast bowlers are kept absolutely, they want to keep them absolutely fresh for that second new ball and not worrying so much about the 6 overs prior to the second new ball where runs are being scored, quite easily. So, they've got to value test runs a lot more and not think about long-term plans. So clearly the long-term plan was made to keep the fast bowlers fresh for that second new ball attack. But if the spinners are getting scored at 5 or 6 runs and over, you've got to quickly adapt to that.
Yeah, short spell seems to be the way that Joe Root wants to operate. Is that also part of potentially long-term planning? Let's not overwork bowlers early on in the start of a long series.
See, as the innings went on, the Indian innings, you got an insight into England's bowling tactics. I think they were very impressive for the first 5 batsmen. After that, you could see it was more about conservation of energy of the bowlers. They weren't as aggressive and mean. It's a word that I use a lot, mean against, say, Ashwin or Washington Sundar as they were with the earlier batsmen. With Pujara, with Virat Kohli, everyone, they went hard at them, but just took their foot off the pedal with regards to aggression against somebody like Ashwin and Washington Sundar. Also, the fact that I look at Jofra Archer and I look at him as a really fiery bowler who can bowl 3 or 4 overs of, real pace and add a kind of a shock value to their bowling attack. But considering that Ben Stokes is not bowling at all, he becomes their stock bowler. Jimmy Anderson can be the stock bowler, bowl 4 or 5 overs in a spell. But if Archer gets the feeling that he's also one of the 4 bowlers who's got to keep bowling, then you don't get the best of Jofra Archer because you saw his speed vary from 125 start of an over to 140. Now, this is a guy who's got to bowl, say, 3/4 overs, but all those balls have to come at speed of 140 that he's capable of. Because he really looks like the wicket taker amongst both sides, amongst the fast bowlers, a guy who can pick wickets, by intimidating batsmen on this kind of pitch.
Now, if we hadn't seen those 2 overs of India bowling with the spinners to England, I wonder if this answer would have been any different. But after 10 sessions of play, we saw Ashwin relatively easy, comfortable with the bat. Washington Sundar comfortable with the bat, not much happening with ball. Are you surprised at how good this surface has been 10 sessions into the game? Or are we about to see something else now in this next session?
See, what you're seeing at Chennai is very typical of what you see at the Wankhede Stadium, the color of the soil. It's the red soil, and that happens at Wankhede as well. So when the rough is created on day 2, you get very excited. But that rough is like, those tigers that you see in the Thai temple who are very friendly. It's a very friendly rough. So it just sort of goes dusty, and that happens at the Wankhede Stadium as well. So if you can survive day 2 and 3, the pitch will look really like a sand pit, but it won't be that threatening or difficult to bat on. So you will see balls pitching in the rough, and batsmen like Washington Sundar playing a cover drive when the ball is pitched in the rough. So it will get slow and slow. And sessions post lunch, post tea will get really slow. Post tea most manageable. I doubt whether you see too much of uneven bounce because the whole pitch will go a bit dusty, and that is the problem with the red soil where the clay content is not as much. When you have the white gray soil, you tend to get cracks, and the rough is a little more lethal.
Those two overs, I don't know how much they'd be in England's mind. The fact that one took off of Nadeem to the right-hander, Ashwin got Rory Burns with one that took off the left-hander. What's the sort of chat that from in either dressing room now? One that you'd be having with India's spinners if you were India, and one what England would probably be thinking about. Oh, is this, do we need to be careful here?
See, they want to tell themselves while the ball is hard and new, Ashwin and Shahbaz, Nadeem will be a little more venomous. Plus the fact that the morning pitch will have a little more bite than post-lunch, post-tea. So first 30, 40 minutes, the England batsmen must ensure they don't offer their bat without getting to the pitch of the ball, like Burns did. So he trusted the pitch a little too much. That can you can get away with that when the ball gets a little softer and it's in the post-lunch or tea session. India, very simple. Both Ashwin and Shahbaz, Nadeem and Washington Sundar really has to be pushed in this inning, have to bowl quicker. Bowl quicker, be dogmatic, be machine-like. You don't need too much of, artistry in the air, especially Shahbaz Nadeem, who was really disappointed in the first innings. Shahbaz Nadeem, just stick to that middle stump line, bowl quicker, and don't bowl too many short balls. There were too many balls that he allowed batsmen to cut in the first innings, and Virat Kohli, please, let's not have short extra cover and driving, catching fielders for somebody like Shahbaz Nadeem. He's not that careful bowler.
All right. In which case, when you make the point of Rory Burns trusting this pitch, the adjustments that need to be made when you bat first versus batting third, you saw England counter the spin quite well in the first innings. You have a different sort of conversation now suddenly when you're playing in the afternoon of day 4.
See, my experience just watching cricket and playing on these kind of pitches over the years, the red soil, it's not like it's going to be absolutely unplayable on day 4 and 5. If you put your head down, you can survive on these kind of pitches. I remember playing an Irani Trophy game and enforcing the follow-on, and Rahul Dravid was playing in the opposition, and he got 100 quite easily. So that was at the Wankhede Stadium where you feel that, day 4 and 5 is going to get unplayable. May not happen. So England's got to be, I thought they played superbly in the first inning. It was really so heartening to see a foreign team come and play Indian spinners off the back foot, on Indian pitches, because a lot of people talk about using their feet, and foreign batsmen I see when they think about using their feet in India against spinners, they think about going down the pitch and playing those, drives of the front foot. Using the feet also means that you get right back on the back foot. And it was just brilliant watching Ben Stokes and Joe Root, use that space behind the batting crease simply as well. I thought they played spinners superbly, and I don't see them, collapsing in the second innings, completely sort of clueless against Indian spin. But having said that, Ronak, my motto these days following Test cricket is anything's possible.
Absolutely. In which case, that England are still firmly in the ascendancy. Even if they lose a couple of quick wickets, doesn't really change which team is in front here. Would you expect them to change things up? There was chat of Butler and Stokes potentially coming higher up the order. They've stuck to 1, 2, and 3 as is the first innings. Will they stick to root at 4? At what point do they start getting creative of let's push this on, we can still win this test match?
Right, we are in day 4, right? We are day 4. Just after lunch, they'll have to give themselves a little more time because this pitch is strange. It's not one of those pitches that you get all over the world where day 4 and 5 will be extremely difficult to bat on, uneven bounce, cracks. I mean, there are no cracks on the pitch. There's only dust. So England have their work cut out because they know that they need to give themselves more time to get this team out the second time around, despite people like Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli and Ajinkya Rahane failing. India lasted that long. The second new ball had to be taken, so they'll be mindful of that. So if they want to win this game, they have to give themselves plenty of time. So for the moment, short-term plan would be simply, and who's coming at number 3?
Dan Lawrence.
Dan Lawrence, continue batting. and Joe Root after that, and then see how it goes. But the pressure on England would be they'll need more than the normal time that's needed to get a team out in the final innings.
Yeah, you've already given us a bit on what you'd like Virat Kohli to do with using his spinners. At what point do we see the pacers used then? Bumrah could still have a big role to play, or is this going to be about how well India's spinners bowl?
It's amazing, Ronak, how the game has changed over the years. Now the new ball is tailor-made for the spinners to use. And when it gets old, it's tailor-made for seam bowlers to use. To the extent that Ishant Sharma also was bowling full-length deliveries and trying to get that reverse swing Yorkers. Bumrah's main attempt to get wickets was the Yorker. So I see this continuing, and I hope it does. Both Shahbaz Nadeem and Ashwin are not your strong kind of spinners who bowl quickly at 90 kilometers per hour. And when the ball gets soft, also get that ball to your spite of the pitch. They're not that kind of bowlers. Physically, it's not possible for them. That's why I think Jadeja, I keep watching this pitch, and India are sorely missing Jadeja because of his strength as a spinner. He's that quick kind of spinner that you need on this kind of a pitch. So yes, bowl the spinners as much as you can when the ball is hard and new, because that will help them get a little more bite of the pitch. And once the ball gets a little old, get the seamers in. See how the game has changed right in front of our eyes in the last 10, 15 years.
Absolutely. Missing Jadeja, no doubt. But can Shahbaz Nadeem fill in for him in this big session? Sanjay Manjrekar, let's pick up this conversation at tea time. Big thank you for you. I look forward to welcoming you with this new dapper look that I'm so getting used to on our tea time show as well on ESPN Cricket for Matchday, powered by Realme X7 5G and X7 Pro 5G. Do join us then. It's an important session, this, in the context of the game. England still well and truly in front. But let's see how things go in the middle session on day 4.